Hello, ADHD community. Jim Dunn here from Achieve. I am an ADHD coach, so I help people out with the challenges with ADHD, like hyperactivity, or as we are adults, that turns into internal restlessness, as well as impulsivity and distractibility or inattentiveness. And those are really the three main domains when it comes to ADHD. And what I wanted to do today was to talk to you about this whole idea of perfectionism. And I'm sure that we've all been plagued with this idea that we have to be perfect. Many people with ADHD are challenged with this. And even, just so that you know, people that don't have ADHD are also plagued by this sometimes. And they feel like, hey, at work and at home, everything I say, everything I do, it needs to be perfect. So with ADHD specifically, I think that when we're kids, and as we get older, we're chastised a lot. We're disciplined a lot because people don't really understand the challenges associated with ADHD, which is better left for another video as far as what's going on with the ADHD brain. But oftentimes, ADHD people are very intelligent, yet at the same time, ADHD folks might lose their keys, forget about appointments, say things that they don't mean, overshare. So there's a number of different things that go on with the ADHD brain that people may recognize and correct. And I think as we get older, we seek to be perfect. And I think the other part of this is we live in a culture of perfectionism. I'm a corporate refugee, and I can tell you that the industry that I come from, it's all about being perfect. And that again is probably left for another video. So how do we deal with perfectionism? So what I wanted to do is to give you some actionable steps, things to invite you to think about starting tomorrow. And one of the first things that you can think about here is there really is no such thing as perfectionism. We give it our best effort. We put a lot of work into our initiatives and our projects, I'm sure. And the idea that it's going to be perfect is really a fallacy. So one of the first things to think about here is a mind shift change to experiments. When you are doing a project, when you have an initiative going on, one of the ways that you can look at this to take the pressure off yourself and start to move away from this idea of perfectionism is that it's an experiment. And much like a scientist would do experiments, you do want to collect the information, do your research, test, validate. You want to take a look at what the outcome is. And if there are corrections that you can make in this, beautiful, that's great. I'm sure there's more than one iteration of whatever project there is that you're working on. But view it as not pass fail. And don't view it as it has to be perfect. View it as an experiment. And you'll go through these experiments to see how it works out. The other thing I want to invite you to do is to have some empathy for yourself. If things aren't turning out because you had the mindset that you wanted your project or your initiative to be perfect, I'd like you to exercise some empathy by doing the same thing that your best friend or your coach would do for you, and that is giving yourself a break and reminding yourself that there isn't any such thing as being perfect, and that you give it your best effort. And if something doesn't work out, then it's a learning experience, and to spend some time thinking about those learnings and what you might want to do the next time is perfectly fine. The third thing I want to mention, so I actually have three things, not two. The third thing I want to mention is I just recently read Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. And if you haven't read it, that's a really excellent book. And he speaks to the idea of making mistakes on purpose. And one of the things that he studied were polyglots, those people that could speak multiple languages. And what I found interesting about this idea of polyglots and perfectionism is that the polyglot that he researched made mistakes on purpose. Talk about a mind shift change. This individual felt in order to become proficient in whatever language they were learning, they wanted to make up to 200 mistakes per day. So how's that? Someone learning a language, going out and saying, hey, I have to put my ego aside. It's okay if I make mistakes. I am actually going to make mistakes on purpose. And the polyglot in this case felt as though that the way that they learned best and grew was by deliberately making mistakes. And even if they learned a sentence or two in the language, they started to try to converse with people right away. And of course, they're going to make mistakes. And that was the whole purpose behind this, because they felt as though that's how you can learn. So what I invite you to do is to think about those three different actionable pieces of advice and figure out if there's one of those that might resonate with you, so that you can start exercising and looking at one of these pieces of advice that you can use right away. And speak of exercising, that's also an excellent way to deal with all the stress that might come about with perfectionism. So that's an extra tip I threw in there. So until our next video, I thank you very much for listening. And hey, also don't be shy. If you have something in the comments and you want to share around perfectionism and what you do that helps you out, this all helps our audience. So feel free. Thank you very much.